Hello there, gamers everywhere. I'm Swippy92 and I've been playing the beta for Diablo for all weekend. And yes, oof, I'm I'm very much intrigued. I'm very much intrigued. Let's talk a little bit about the beta first. Just some basic information here. This was a closed beta for those who had pre-ordered the game, and now this weekend that's coming on the 24th to 26th, there is an open beta for those who want to try it for free. No need to pre-order anything. It's open, just download the game and download the beta from Battle.net and you can try it this weekend. Now, some other information is it's only the first area that's unlocked that you can go around in and discover things in, but it's big. I mean, really big. It's kind of like if you took the regions that you find in Diablo 2 and Diablo 3, but with no loading screens in between, and you can just travel around all that. Even the city, the main city, and the different smaller villages, they don't have loading screens. You just enter them. This is both good and bad, I would argue, as the game has a lot more to load in and think about. But I mean, it worked quite well during this beta. It could be worse during the open beta. I hope uh, the servers will work well. I really hope they will. And the max level is 25 apparently. Yeah, there you go. And far as I know, none of the progress you make in the beta carries over to the full game. Not that I know of at least. Which is kind of sad when I think about my rogue, because my rogue has become a real killing machine. Like activating one ability and then firing my arrow and I clear a whole room. Just loving it. Well, a whole room with weaker opponents. If there's any bosses in there, well, they're gonna survive. Uh, so, let's talk about story. The story progression in the beta, at least, is really nice. It has a good flow, and I don't feel like I'm being forced to follow it uh, too tightly. I can move around wherever I want to, and it has some good moments. I do like the story. I'm intrigued by it, really intrigued. Uh, I like what it's shaping up to be, but I'm very curious as to how Diablo and possibly all the other evils of hell will play a role. How will their role in the story be? What will it be? Because we can't have a Diablo game without Diablo. That would be just weird. But we'll have to wait and see for that for the full game. The cutscenes are really nice. They're very well done. I wonder if they have made with motion capture and as well with the face animations, really well done. The same with the body animations, of course. Uh, so far, the cutscenes are few and far between. At least the what I would qualify as a real cutscene, except not the ones where just the camera pans down and it just becomes yeah, like a story unfolding or a thing unfolding, like a real proper cutscene where the camera just becomes something else and follows a character and so on in a different way. You know what I mean. Uh, this goes for the gameplay too. With when I talk about the animations and effects and all that, it looks really good. I like the graphics in the game, and I love the more gothic style that they have compared to, for instance, Diablo 3, which has a more I don't know, almost cartoony kind of, and light. It's not as dark as this one. Now, don't get me wrong, Diablo 3 is pretty dark, but it's not as dark as this one. And I do like what they're going for in this one. It has a lot more in common with Diablo 2 in that regard. Now, as for what I did in the beta or and how I experienced it, well, It's good. It's technically technical wise, it's pretty good. The loading queues were, of course, an issue at the start, right at the start, because people were in the queues for like 2 hours or something, but they were quickly uh, gone. At least when I started playing on Saturday again, I had no queues, and I have had no long queues after that. Maybe less than a minute every time. So yeah, no problem there. Could be because less people are playing, but I don't know. Maybe not. Some server lag where things load in a bit late, like you're running and something pops up all of a sudden, and some invisible walls when I'm running, and also the good old teleported back a few steps thing. You run and then you get teleported back. Only happened on occasion, very rare occasions, and never in combat, so no big issue there at least. The one annoying thing though that I did experience all the time, every time, is when I try to exit the main town through the east gate or east path. Uh, an invisible wall hindered me from or stopped me from actually going out into the open world through that path. I don't know why. I had to either take the lower east path or the west path, west gate out and go around. That was really annoying, but should be an easy enough fix for both the open beta and the full game. God, I hope it's fixed by then. Now, I did get to try to try all the three classes that were available, and I did. Those three classes are Barbarian, Rogue, and Sorceress. I started off with the Barbarian, and can't say much. It's a Barbarian, hard hitting and somewhat tanky. I wouldn't say I was tanky, but maybe more tanky than the Rogue and the Sorceress, definitely. But they all had their ups and downs, shall we say. They all handle a bit differently, and yeah, it was nice. Oh, and only three are available this beta, but all five classes will be available during the open beta. So keep that in mind if you want to try all five. The most surprising thing, though, and somewhat confusing actually, is that the Barb has four weapons. Four weapons on him. I'm currently using two-handed, or not two-handed, dual wielding, so I'm dual wielding two weapons, but I also have like one bludgeoning and one arsenal weapon, or one bludgeoning and one slashing weapon. So a sword and a mace, basically. That's on my back. And these are used when I use different abilities, like the leap. Then I use the mace for some reason. So I have four weapons. The rogue has three, the bow and two knives, and the sword has two, but only one if using a staff, because a staff is two-handed. That means a barb can have four legendary weapons with four different legendary effects, and a rogue can have three, but a sword can only have one or two. Now, I don't get that really, not yet anyway. It's either a weird beta mechanic, I don't think it is, but it's either that or the barb and rogue has a lot more potential than the source. The source could have a higher base damage, but it's not something I've noticed really. I'm not sure if that would even make up for everything. Like, it's weird. Why doesn't the source have like a doesn't the source set have like one of those swords, like the thing that can float above your hand? Why does isn't that a thing even if you have a staff? I don't know. It makes for weird balancing, I think. But oh well, that's the way they have done it. But oh, I don't know what else to say. I'm confused. Now, let's talk about the arsenal, the weapons. Yes, legendaries. Let's talk about legendaries. Well, they're basically like in Diablo 3. They have a unique effect called aspect in this instead of I'm just saying legendary effect, but yeah. aspect. That this, just like in Diablo 3, you can extract, but you don't extract it with a cube. Instead, you go to a NPC. I think it's called an occultist.
All right, traveler.
And after extracting the power, which will lose 50% of its changeable stat, like the percent damage it deals. Like the weapon, I have a bow that increased the damage, or not increased damage. It split the ability into the arrow into two parts after hitting an enemy, so it went two arrows went diagonally from the enemy at a hit, and they did 70 something percent damage of the original shot. But when I extracted that power from the bow because I found a better bow, it had gone down to 30% something. I don't know why they do that, but hey, they do. I guess it's because not to break the game too much. I don't know. Anyway, after extracting that, I couldn't find the aspect in the list at the occultist because I thought it was going to be in the list there among all the other aspects. But those are
Very
aspects
well.
that you find when completing a dungeon. When you complete a dungeon, you get an aspect. This aspect can be for any class, so not necessarily the class you're playing as. So you can look at what aspect you get by hovering over the dungeon on well in the map. So if you're looking for a specific one, just do that. Anyway, uh, when I looked in my inventory, I did find a tab that says aspect. That's where it was. So going back to the occultist, I placed my knife, my yellow knife, in the slot, and then I chose a aspect from inventory and added that, and that made a legendary knife. So yeah, I got myself a legendary knife with that aspect that I had previously on a bow. And it works pretty well. You can't extract the power again from that item that you just made, so I couldn't extract the power from that knife. So either I'm stuck or I have to hope to find a new item with legendary item with that same effect. And the aspect in the inventory is used up, of course. And legend is of course random drop, so doing quests, main and side quests, events, and dungeons will get you a few, hopefully. Events also nets you a form of currency used by a special vendor that you can find in the main city. This vendor sells random items that you don't know what they are. You just choose which item you want to buy and you hope for the best. And it's kind of like Kadala in Diablo 3, but I want to say with better odds of getting a legendary. Now, as for what you will use these legendaries for, well, let's talk about bosses. Bosses. Bosses in dungeons can be hard. I mean, they can be hard hitting and punishing, really. I mean, this of course depends on your character, the build, and you're using, and so on. But damn, damn, oh, they can be so annoying. Yeah. And they're really anti-melee. Anti-melee deluxe. At least that's what I felt when I'm playing as the barbarian. At least a ranger rogue can kite the damn thing, like I had to do with the one certain stronghold boss. Yes, because stronghold bosses are even worse than dungeon bosses. Strongholds are basically locations where if you manage to complete it, you unlock a small town there in that location, where you have a smither and waypoint and so on. So that's nice. Uh, and also a new dungeon. At least that's what I got from the two strongholds that I completed. Now, these strongholds are not easy to take on solo. The OP bosses, but also the thing before the boss, which is basically a filler thing, can be quite difficult to manage as well. Now, you do get a good amount of reputation points for them, so that is worth it. Reputation is gained from like side quests and more things out in the world, and gives reward for completing a milestone. So if you have gotten 300 reputation, you get something like gold and XP and maybe a skill point or something else. Pretty standard stuff, but definitely worth getting. Now, a quick word on world bosses. Yeah, not sure what to say here. I'm not that well well versed in world bosses, but so I can imagine it's difficult to balance them. But maybe a longer timer, at least on the one that I tried to fight here, along with some other players. We did not kill this thing, not even close. It was an interesting fight, though. I did die a lot, but it was an interesting fight. I'm not gonna say anything more. Now, in conclusion, well, all in all, if this beta is any indicator on how the full game will be at the launch, I'm looking very much forward to it. Much more than I did before the beta, if I'm 100% honest. And why wouldn't I be? I hope for a good end game. That's the main thing that I'm worried about. But I'm looking very much forward to the game. Even though it will have a battle pass. And that is something I will talk about in another video. But, have you tried the beta? Are you gonna try the beta this weekend? Well, put your thoughts down in the comments. I've been Swipin92, have a great life, and I hope to see you in future videos. Bye bye!